What is up, guys? DT Ninja here for you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido arc, chapter 58 review. Alright, guys, last time we saw Kenshin Himura and Sojiro Seita take on Itakura Byakuya. At the very end of the chapter, we saw his special technique, this Fudo Todo, immovable freezing, and we see him talk about his fighting spirit, which he found on that day, which is his past. So today we're going to take a look at his past, and yeah, let's get to it. Chapter 58, Itakura Byakuya's past is revealed. All right, so in the snowy landscape, as you can see here, it says the late Edo period. So late Edo period would be around the time of Batosai and Makoto Shishio being active. So that's quite interesting. It also says Ichigo. Now, Ichigo was a place in during the Edo period, but also it is the current day Niigata prefecture. So it is also mentioned in Yaiko's Sakabato. Yaiko Sakabato is the special chapter where Yaiko goes to Ichigo, and he does some lessons and helps out the dojo there. But anyway, the reason is because Kaoru basically asked Yaiko a favor because Kaoru's father is friends with Kikuhara Sensei, who is the master of that dojo. And you see it here in this scan in Yaiko Sakabato, where he mentions that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, Ichigo is the location in this chapter. So pretty cool. Anyway, let's get to it. Okay, Itakura, we see him slice through a man with little trouble here. I mean, he literally cuts him in half. Pretty brutal. The first thing that came to mind was Makoto Shishio slicing through that Meiji government official, the Meiji government police officer, whoever he was. He cut him in half. Well, look at all of these bandits. He basically slices them all these dead bodies everywhere, and then just their heads. That's crazy. But I love the parallel of his viciousness, and also the fact that Itakura and Makoto Shishio could have been, around the same time that this happened. So anyway, the parallel between Itakura and Shishio, very interesting stuff. I just wanted to share that. Pretty cool. One thing I want to point out is Itakura's he's never satisfied with killing. Never. In fact, after killing all of those guys, he says he's weak. I can't believe I'm this weak. How could these bandits injure me? So he considers himself weak. He's not strong enough. As you can see, the blood pouring here after getting struck by one of the blades in his looks like his ribs or something. But anyway, after getting struck by one of the bandits, he thinks he's weak. He's not strong enough. And then it goes on to talk about some interesting things here in page 4. It talks about how he mastered Sekiriki, this enhancement technique of Kenkaku Heki. We've mentioned this before. It's the blood red eyes. It also enhances, your strength and your endurance. But he also says that he was never chosen as an elite warrior of Kenkaku Heki because he was never able to experience hell. And that hell breeds warriors, or the elite warriors. So this would be Kenshin, Saito, Nagakura, all of those that we saw in chapter 19, where he had the chapter about hell and he was referring to all those that experienced hell. He is referring to that. He's saying that he's never experienced hell. So he just keeps fighting, keeps killing people for that chance to experience and enter hell, which is where he wants to go. And the reason he wants to do that is because to become an elite warrior, he has to experience hell like the Batosai, like Saito, like Nagakura, like Anji, like Sojiro, like all these characters that have been, traumatized and experienced it and have become stronger because of it. Okay, so after this, he suddenly sees this image in front of him, this shadow figure, and it looks this monster. And he even mentions it's a mountain monster. This mountain monster. What the hell? And then he says, no, it's a snow monster. I want to point something out. Itakura has been called a monster by several people. But yeah, interestingly enough, you can see some of the features like the spiky hair, just no face. Itakura is obsessed with hell. I mentioned this before. What he says here is even more interesting. He says, if I cannot get into hell, then I will fight those who can. This is actually foreshadowing for, later on where he fights Hajime Saito and Kenshin Batosai, where he fights both of them, and even the others, that he brings alongside them at Goryokaku. So this is actually foreshadowing. It also kind of gives you an idea of who he is as a character. He basically says, don't leave, take me to hell, take me with you. And you see kind of this blizzard just kind of consume him. And he's breathing really hard. You can see here the blizzard is actually consuming him. And he just keeps saying, wait, snow monster, fight me, come back, fight. And of course he raises his sword. And then of course, as he's raising his sword, he sees the image still basically reflecting. And that's when he realizes this monster is me. This thing is me. It's a reflection of me. I want to point something out. The snowscape or the snow landscape does remind me a little bit about Batosai's backstory in Remembrance when he fights the Yaminobu. So there is some to that, but there is more to it. Not just that. There's another manga, another Tale of Frankenstein. The main character in chapter 1, he actually is in a snowstorm, just like this. And it has a similar look. In fact, his hairstyle is almost the exact same as Itakura. So I gotta say, that's gotta be some influence for Itakura's character. But the fact that the very first scene in his past is also a blizzard scene is very interesting. So I wanted to show that. That's pretty cool. The character is Fury Flatliner, and he becomes kind of this Frankenstein. He's beyond human, which also kind of reflects the Kinkaku Heki as well. They're beyond human as well. So that's another kind of thing. But anyway, I thought I'd share that. That's pretty cool. But anyway, let's go to the next page. Okay, so the next part, you see him laughing hysterical at himself, at his helplessness. You can see just at his situation. He basically goes on, that's definitely me. Empty, hollow, no identity. And so he starts laughing and basically becomes consumed by the blizzard. And of course, you can see him here. His blood is rushed. His tears become blood, basically. Blood is running down his eyes. And then he's basically saying, I am nothing. It's truly me who can never become anything. To me, this actually speaks something. Like, there's something hidden about his character. Like, the reason he cannot get into hell is because his heart is frozen. And literally in this chapter, he becomes a block of ice. So that could be an actual truth. That could be why he cannot reach hell, his obsession with hell, and he can't experience it is because literally his heart is frozen, like his body is frozen. Every time he survives and almost has a death experience, he literally uses Sekiriki, which what it looks like to me, Sekiriki, to survive, and he becomes stronger. But in this case, it kind of does look like tears of blood too, which could be symbolic of kind of inner sorrow, suffering internally. But to me, if his heart is frozen, it's probably Sekiriki, honestly. As you can see, his blood is hardening, his flesh, everything is becoming hard. His entire body becomes ice. And then, of course, yeah, you can see it is Sekiriki. Look at his eyes. They're all red. Yeah, but it kind of does look like blood, tears of blood as well. But I do think it's Sekiriki. I think his Sekiriki is so strong, he's able to basically go into a coma. And that's how he survives. That's why he is able to survive Kenshin's attacks. That's why he's able to survive this crazy ordeal. And he sees his true self, the solid block of ice. But if that is true, and his heart is frozen, that would explain it. Because every time he has this near-death experience, he cannot experience trauma because literally his body becomes frozen as ice. So he can't experience that. That's why he can't reach and experience hell. But anyway, okay, the next page, we see a fire. Obviously, we have this scene with Itakura in bed. And yes, someone saved him. A mysterious swordsman reveals that he thought this man was dead. This block of ice, he thought he was dead. He can't believe he's alive. It's a miracle. And then Itakura basically says, "You saved me. I'm going to have to repay you for that. Who are you?" And he says he's a swordsman in training. He's like, "Oh, what a strange fate." And then he says, "You're just like me," which is interesting because it kind of is like him. They're both swordsmen. He goes on to mention that he was tasked to take care of those bandits, but a blizzard was blocking his way, and Itakura got to them before he had a chance. Then Itakura is like, "Well, it's kill or be killed. That's how it is." And so he says, "I understand, but that's not what I'm about." And then he goes on to show the two swords here, and he basically says something very interesting. He says, "What I'm aiming for is a sword used to revitalize people." So to me, this is definitely Koshijiro. This is Kaoru's father, because the words he uses is the principles of Kamiya Kashin, the revitalizing people. This is actually Kamiya Kashin, and it hasn't been created yet. So yeah, this is obviously the Bakamatsu. So yeah, interesting stuff. I definitely think this is Kaoru's father. This is the first time we've seen him outside of the photo. So that's another thing. But yeah, I do think this is Kaoru's father, and maybe that part where he says, "I'll repay the favor," actually will come back in the future as foreshadowing, because he says, "You're just like me, we're swordsmen in training." Okay, then Itakura looks on at the fire, and basically the swordsman, who I think is Koshijiro, Kaoru's father, basically says, "Wow, you really survived this ordeal. You've been through hell and back. You need to heal that wound of yours. Keep an eye on it." And he's like, "No, I won't need to." And he says, "It's been sealed already." And you see him sealing the wound by using his power. Basically, it shatters, the blood crystallizes, it shatters. And then here, he goes on to say, "Jigoku wa mite nai." I haven't seen hell, but I've seen my true self. I've grabbed onto it. And then the next page is the final 2-pager, and we have Itakura basically running right for Kenshin and Sojiro, and he's like, my fighting spirit has shown me, a solid block of ice has shown me that no sword, no weapon, no gun nothing can penetrate Fudo Todo, which is his impenetrable ice shield that he has, his Fudo Todo. Nothing can, he's basically invincible is what he's saying. And of course, Sojiro looks on and Kenshin looks on really worried. They are just in shock at what they're looking at. Okay, so this was a very interesting chapter with a lot of implications. I mentioned the thing about Sekiriki and how he survives. That would make sense because remember, Itakura, he has an abnormal amount of blood. Remember how it was explained in chapter 35 where he bled out. That's why he held back against Kenshin because he wanted to bleed out in order to use his full power. That just goes to show you that when he is on death's door, he activates Sekiriki somehow, just out of instinct. That's how strong he's become. It also would indicate why he's never able to experience hell. But also, like I said, he wants to fight those who can, which is Kenshin and Sojiro. What I want to mention also is that about the ability itself, Fudo Todo. Well, this ability, this ice ability, ability to regulate his temperature, he definitely has some influence, Itakura, definitely from a few characters. One is the Sandman from Marvel. When you think about it, Sandman is able to harden his entire body, right? With obviously gravel or whatever earth, he's able to make his body hard just like the ice. He's also able to become superhuman. He has superhuman strength and endurance like him. But also one time, the Sandman had cement on him and he literally goes into a coma. And he survives that deadly ordeal. It's the very same thing that happened to Itakura when he basically froze. He's alive, but he's basically frozen in a coma. That's what I see here. And I definitely see some influence of the Sandman. I also see some other characters, like the abnormal blood, definitely from John Doe of Frankenstein, Another Tale of Frankenstein. And it definitely has blood is very key to Itakura's power. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. So we're going to end with this scene where Itakura is basically dashing towards them. We're going to get more of the battle in the next chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.